Welcome back to the SSL Family Dad channel. Let's go down and take a look at the garden today. It's been a little over a week since everything was planted. So let's go take a look and see how well things are sprouting and growing and see how it all turned out. Give you a quick run through of the big picture here before we get into the closer view of things. Got all of our peppers down here. In the far rectangle we have tomatoes. Those were all grown inside and started over the winter, about February, March time frame. And then they've been growing on a grow shelf, and those were planted a couple weeks ago in late May. There's a farmer up there, a farm field right next to the house. He's getting it all tilled up, ready to roll for his planting season. And we have a couple rows of corn kind of right at the end of the peppers there. We've got a few raised beds here. I'll go through those closer up. And then everything on the back side of the garden here gets a little more shade. You can see this is kind of midday, late afternoon, and it's starting to get shaded here. This gets mostly morning sun, and on the other side gets sun almost all day. But this back here is a little bit more shaded. So we have a lot of leafy greens and other types of things planted through the back area in all these rows. So let's kind of take a look at what we have, and then I'll tell you the secret to getting a good fast start to your garden in the spring. So we've got radishes. Favorite thing about radishes is how quickly they grow. I think that everyone should always grow some radishes in their garden because they're just satisfying. And it looks like my dog ran through here, and I see some paw prints and some wrecked rows. So good job, dog. So this is the best time to thin these out while the roots are just real shallow. They're not fingered out a lot, so they're not intertwined together. And so you can kind of get in here and you can individually pick these off. You can pull them out if you're comfortable that it's not going to disrupt the one next to it, or you can just pinch them and just cut them off, and that'll die. It won't grow anymore. And so radishes, we do want to be, divided out a decent space. So radishes have been growing really good. These popped up just a few days later, and they've been growing strong. So this is all kale through here, and the kale has just kind of started to come up. You can see the little sprouts here. This I won't thin out quite as much because as this grows up, it will naturally find its own space in the row. And so we've got a row going all the way down here, and the kale grows quick. So the next row over here, we have all of our Swiss chard. I've got a various kinds of Swiss chard in here. I had a bunch of leftover packets of seed. I won't thin these out too much because, again, they'll find their own space. The leaves that are too close together will kind of grow out to the side, and they'll find their own space, and it'll get kind of bushy in here, but I like it like that. We've got scarlet kale, so this is an MI Gardener seed. This is mixed in with some other kinds of kale I had as well, some leftover seed, and so you can kind of see the scarlet kale in there amongst the other ones. I just mixed them all up and put it all the way down. Kale is another vegetable that we don't eat a ton of. It's not like our favorite thing, but I always grow it because it just grows so well in almost any environment. Kale is hardy, just about every variety, and it just grows so well and so easily. And so at the very least, it's great for us to eat and put in salads and use for cooking and other things like that, but nothing's going to go to waste. The chickens love it too, so I always try to grow some kale in every garden we have. So the next row is a nice long row of spinach, and you get the distinctive little two sprouts coming up for all the spinach plants. These I will thin out a little bit. Spinach can grow pretty tall, and if you give the plants enough space, they'll get some real nice leaves on them. And so I will definitely thin these out, but I'm going to wait a little bit longer. There's still a lot coming up, and I'll wait until I can see the healthiest ones probably next week, and I'll start to thin those. Well, I see we have some invaders here. So we've got quite a few ants that have moved in here, or I guess they were probably here before me, but we will need to get rid of those. They can do quite a bit of damage to fruiting crops. Usually what I'll do is mix up some diatomaceous earth and just kind of powder it in this area, and that usually takes care of them. Be careful using some homemade DIY ant remedies out there. We have actually had our dog get very sick. There's a remedy out there for getting rid of ants that you mix borax, I believe it is, with sugar, powdered sugar or something like that, and you sprinkle it around, and the ants will eat it, and it consumes them and messes up kills them. Anywhere you put sugar, just so you know, your cats and dogs will also find it and love it, and so that's not good for them to eat. This row here is mixed varieties, but you can see we've got little starts, it looks like, of the arugula coming up. This is the one that will take a little longer. And this is basil. There might be some basil, but it might be grass too. It's hard to tell. And we've got some cilantro through here. Can't really tell if that has sprouted yet either. There are some sunflower seeds along the edges that will be coming up here pretty soon, but I also planted all of my vining stuff along the back, so you can see a lot of the peas, sugar snap peas are coming up. Those are doing real well. So this is all in just about a week, a little over a week. So this is an MI Gardener seed here, an onion, long bunching onion, and you can just start to see the little onions coming up. Got some lettuce coming through here. You can see that'll perk up real quick once it gets going. Some mounds here of broccoli and cauliflower, various kinds, and that's sprouted up, so that's doing really well. A newfound love for this little vegetable, and we've had some good recipes with Brussels sprouts that were really amazing. So this will get thinned out because these grow up pretty big as far as I understand. These are supposed to be self-supporting variety, but I've never grown them before, so we'll see what happens. Look at this poor little guy. This was a cabbage plant that I planted inside, started inside, and when I brought it out, I kind of wrecked it, and it looks like it might come back. Got some squash in this row. Doesn't look like that has come up yet. Sometimes those can take a little bit longer, so we'll see how that turns out. That's also kind of old seed, so we'll see what happens there. We've got some various lettuces. This is actually iceberg lettuce, is why they're spread apart. This is a head lettuce. Got cucumbers here, and it looks like I didn't have very good germination on the front half, and I'm not sure if I forgot to plant the front half or if I used some of my older seed for the front half, and I think I used that MI Gardener seed for the back half. But I generally don't thin these out too much either if I have a trellis that can support them, because they will spread out on the trellis. So if you make a big enough trellis area, the cucumbers will spread out nice. Looks like all of our raspberries have taken really well. So the 4 hills on the corner here were pumpkins that I started inside. Weren't in big enough containers inside. They started getting real unhealthy, and I don't know if any of them made it except for maybe this one. The rest of them died. Zucchini, I will probably thin these to 1 plant per hill, and then you can see all the bush beans. So this is a little row along the path here that will kind of just grow up and help to border this path. And we got random sunflowers planted all around, and so those are sprouted up as well. And those are actually a little less than a week. Tomatoes are all looking pretty good, nice and healthy. A lot of the little ones have perked back up. Got all of our corn popping up here. It's doing pretty well. And all of our peppers in here looking good. They got a little transplant shock, but they're coming back pretty good. So maybe you got your garden all planned out. You've got it all planted. You've spent time organizing and feeding your soil and putting compost in and putting in paths, maybe wood chipping and planting, the tedious process of planting all of your crops, your vegetables in there, all your seed. You've bought it all, you've planted all winter, you've been waiting, spring has arrived, and you're all ready now. You've got it all in the ground, and now what? What do you need to do? There's 2 things that seeds need to sprout, really. They don't even need soil, so that's an extra, that's a bonus. What seeds need to sprout are generally warmth, a temperature. There's a temperature coefficient there that they need, and water. If they have those 2 things, if it's cold and they have water, they will not sprout. If it's warm and they don't have water, they won't sprout. But if it's warm enough, depending on the seed, and it is wet enough, the seeds will sprout. Now, the most dangerous part of a vegetable's life, the most fragile part, is right after that seed starts to germinate. So the seed will start to germinate, and it will pop out, and you'll start to get little leaves and little roots pop out of the bottom. And at that point, if that soil dries out, it can be very damaging to that plant. They don't have deep roots. They can't access a lot of moisture. They've only got the first little ½ inch maybe of soil, for most seeds anyway, where they're gonna access moisture. So you have to keep your soil moist. You got to do it all the time. You got to get out there and water that garden. If you water your garden and things start to sprout and then you leave for 3-4 days and it's hot out, you have a good chance of killing off a lot of your stuff unless you've got some real hardy vegetables. So let me show you what I do. This is something I've used for years, and it has been a lifesaver. And again, this garden sprouted in just over a week. Almost everything I planted, with the few minor exceptions of some things that take a little longer. And it's all because of this. The garden is a very long kind of rectangle, and right in the center I have a fan sprinkler. A fan sprinkler is your bestest friend. That is, I have it right in the center. It will cover every bit of this garden minus that back corner right up there. I have to hand water that back corner and then you can actually see, look at the bell peppers, look at the growth, and then see this little corner back here? These poor little guys. In fact, this one I think might be dead right there, and I think there was another one in here that might be dead, and this one's real short. This is the one corner right here that does not get, that sprinkler doesn't hit, and so I actually need to hand water this, which when you have to hand water things, it's harder, it doesn't happen as much. I know this seems like a very basic piece of equipment, but this is the AquaJo. It's labeled on Amazon as an indestructible sprinkler. I've been recommending this for years. This one's quite old. It actually comes with a little tool on the end that you can use to clean these out if you have hard water. It has a good fan mechanism in it, and it has been solid. Even with our really rusty water here, it's been working really well. All the other ones I've gotten, what happens is they start to get stuck over the years, and they get stuck in the middle. They don't fan really well. This has been a good one. This is all metal, the housing is, and I believe this is plastic in here, but I think these are actually replaceable. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that they are. I think you can remove these and actually replace them if you need to. So what I have been doing is every day I turn the sprinkler on and I let it run for a couple hours. I'm usually not very good at this. I'm busy, I forget. Sometimes you turn the sprinkler on, then you leave and you're like, oh shoot, I've been gone for 6 hours, the sprinkler's on. I've actually done that a couple times in the last week, so it's gotten real wet. What you really need to do, I actually have one that I will be putting in here once the garden gets more established, is a timer. They make Bluetooth timers, they're not super expensive, and I'll probably go through this in a future video. I'll show you once I get it installed. But you set up the Bluetooth timer on your hose, and it's got batteries in it. You set it up from an app on your phone, you put the schedule in there, you hit go, and it just runs, and the sprinkler will come on. Right now I need the sprinkler to come on. I try to get it on twice a day. So I try to get it on earlier in the morning, try to get it on later in the evening. It's fine. Honestly, I'm gonna go against what everybody says. If it's sunny day like this, oh look at all that sun on the, people say, you can't water your garden in the sun when it's sunny. It's fine. 55-degree water coming out of this thing, fan sprinkler over the garden. You're gonna cool your soil down a little bit once these get sprouted. It's gonna be, and actually, once the soil gets warmed up, you get a nice temperature across the garden. It's not gonna burn anything up, it's fine. I water all the time, water in the middle of the day all the time with the garden, it's just fine. Maybe that's different for grass, but it's fine in the garden. Forgot, raised beds. We've got some strawberries growing in here. After I look at this, I'm not sure that's a strawberry. Remember that Sesame Street song? One of these things is not like the other. If that's a strawberry, it's a different kind. That's a strawberry leaf right there, the kind I know. What does the Bible say? You will know by its fruit. So we'll leave this random item in here and see what happens. It looks like a strawberry. I don't know. Surprising results on these potatoes. I thought half of them were dead in the bag, but they sprouted up pretty well with the exception of back here. Over here we've got a lot of onions. And so these were planted from onion sets, which another one I wasn't sure was going to grow because they didn't look real good in the bag. But it looks like we got a lot of onions growing up through here, so that's great. So my next big project for the garden will be wood chips, and wood chips will go down the path very heavily and then down every one of these in between rows. So we'll actually build the wood chips right up to the level of the hill itself. And then once these get up big enough, I will spread wood chips out through here as well, which will help keep all of our weeds down in the garden. That dust from the farm field just floating through. It's been so dry. I also have to build this greenhouse. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the garden tour and a little tip on growing the garden. The most important thing you can do early on in your garden is get it watered. And honestly, it's one of the most important things you can do for the rest of your growing season. If you keep this thing wet, if it gets regular water every day, every other day at the very least, maybe every 3 days depending, this thing, you will get so much growth, and your soil is better, and the microorganisms in the soil, everything will be better. You're feeding not just your plants, but you're feeding the worms and the bugs and the soil, and you want things to break down, you want things to be alive. And the opposite of a desert, we want rainforest, right? We don't want desert. And so water is super important. You almost can't overwater. Very few plants that are gonna be, you're gonna overwater. I mean, unless you swamp your garden, don't do that. Thumbs up on today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Any other tips and tricks for early garden season that you'd like to share? I'd love to hear from you guys as well. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a good one.